So we're going to divide this particular video into a couple of parts. The first step of this first part is to go into our SCADA 6100 folder on Y drive, go into your labs folder, come back here, go into lab 4, waveform programs, copy over the two files that you see here and paste them into a folder on the desktop of your PC. Once that's complete, right-click on each file and remove the read-only properties. Next thing I want you to do is open up the ControlLogix process variable waveforms file, and we're going to place it on the left-hand side of the screen. So with your CLX process variable waveforms code on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll notice I opened up another file, which is your secondary ControlLogix file from a previous lab. Open that up on the right-hand side of the screen. What we need to do is simply copy the process variable waveforms routine from the file on the left. And of course, we'll paste them into the main routine on the right. So go ahead and do that. Next thing we need to do is copy over the jump to subroutine from the main routine on the left. So we'll copy that rung, go into the main routine on the right, and you probably have an existing rung of logic in your particular file. Go ahead and delete it. It was used for previous testing only. So with that deleted, paste in the jump to subroutine instruction, and we can save up our file. Now, if you go into your process variable waveform code, you'll probably notice there's a bunch of E's on the left-hand side of each rung. That's because we haven't copied over the controller tags from the left-hand file yet. I have done it previously in this file, so mine are able to verify okay, but yours will not until you go through this next step. So go into your controller tags, make sure you're in the Edit Tag tab at the bottom, highlight all tags. Okay, using Shift and the cursor. Do a right click and then copy. Go into the controller tags folder in the right hand file, and of course cursor down to the bottom, right click, go ahead and paste, and you're going to dump all of the tags from the previous file over here. Once that's complete, go back to your process variable waveforms code, and I expect you may need to do a verify project, but your edit mode should wipe clear here because now you've added all the tags required for this particular logic code. With that complete, go ahead and save your file and close the sample file on the left. So you should notice at this point in rung 0 I now have a start-stop memory circuit. I've included the area title of what this stop and start push button rung is for. Okay, include that in your tags as well, and I've also included client HMI so we know where this start and stop push button will be. Finally, with the start-stop rung complete, I'm going to copy over the XIC instruction and paste it to each rung in this particular file. So go ahead and do that, and then save up your file. So with an XIC of the mashing system run or your secondary ControlLogix for your process on each rung, I can save it, and we're going to go ahead and download the file and go online with it. And just before I minimize this window, I will go back to the top rung. I want you to note the rung comment that I've added at the top here and make sure your file has the same, something very similar with the course code, your names, the fact that it's your secondary CLX, the area that it's responsible for, and of course the IP number of the EMBT module in your ControlLogix rack. With that complete, go ahead and minimize this particular file and open your RSLogix 500 process variable file. So on the left-hand side, we now have our 4 waveforms in our RSLogix 500 sample file. And on the right-hand side, I want you to open up your Area 3 or your legacy processor file from your previous lab. So on the right-hand side, I have the boiling part of my particular process opened, which is my legacy processor. I've deleted the test rung that was in there from a previous lab, so you should do the same. And then from the left-hand pane, we're going to go ahead and, of course, copy over the rungs of logic required to output 4 unique waveforms. We'll right-click on the right-hand side and, of course, paste it. Alright, and if I do a verify project, you notice the edit mode goes away. So we've got our code in there. The last thing we need to do is add a rung at the top here for start-stop memory circuit on this part of the process. So I've added a start-stop memory circuit for this particular part of the process. Alright, I've also added a rung comment as shown at the top. Make sure that your comments are very similar to what I have used here. for clarity when you open up the file, so you can keep this straight because you're working with multiple processors now, not just one. I'll verify the project, and then we'll go ahead and download it. One thing you will notice is that I also included the Data Highway Plus node number of the SLIC processor that I'm using. You need to do the exact same thing and include that in your run comment. Okay, so we'll go ahead and download the file and then go back to run mode for this particular processor. Alright, so we're making good progress here. Go ahead and close up the window on the left. Next thing I want you to do is to open up your primary control logics file. If you already closed it, open it up, download, and go online with that particular processor. So at this point, you're actually going to have 3 different logic files in run mode, and we're going to open up our FactoryTalk View Studio project and start to connect some of the tags that we just created. So the last part in this particular video for part 1 is to ensure that each of the indicators on your process overview screen is connected to the proper indicator on the logic that you just either updated or added to. In your primary CLX, primary control logics logic, you want to make sure that auto mode is driving, so auto mode on indicator is going to drive this particular indicator on your screen. And the other 3 indicators, we've already talked about the pump RTU in the lab, but the other 2 indicators are going to be the OTEs that you just added to your secondary control logics file and your legacy SLIC file, respectively. So with those connections revised and checked, of course you can verify that you're responding and that the on-off states are going to work properly. You go ahead and do that, and we're going to move on to part 2